All right. So the first practice that I want to share is what I refer to as the beach ball metaphor. And for those of you that have trained with me before, you've probably heard me share this one. And I use it a lot. And I've written it up as something that, again, if you are a clinician watching this, that you can really kind of read and understand a little bit more in depth. And it's something that I share with my clients quite frequently. And the beach ball metaphor is basically, if we think of a beach ball, is in this case holding anything that we don't want to feel. It can be a sensation, it can be an emotion, that it's basically something that we're pushing down. So this beach ball, we're going to imagine that we're pushing it down under the water. And what does a beach ball that's being pushed down under the water want to do? It wants to come to the surface, right? And if you're pushing it down under the water temporarily, no big deal, right? Like I need to go to the store, or I need to parent my kids. It's containment. That's a good skill to have, to know, all right, I have to kind of put this one down. We call it, containment, right? I'm going to put this one away for a little while so I can go do my adulting in the world, do whatever it is that I need to do. But if we're pushing the beach ball down under the water chronically, constantly, because whatever it is that's in there, we can't handle, we feel the urge to avoid, we don't know how to handle it. At some point, it's exhausting. Right? At some point, it's actually taxing for the psyche to have to push all of this down and away and out of conscious awareness. And what happens with anything that we're trying to hold for a long period of time is that inevitably our arms are going to get tired, or we're going to get distracted, or we drink too much, or we have an argument with our partner, or our child acts out, and we lose track of what we're trying to push down, and the beach ball slips through the hands and it pops through the water and it creates this big splash. And then all of a sudden we have this big mess to clean up, and we have to gather it all up and we have to push it back down. So what we want to do is actually understand that whatever that dysregulated feeling is something that we need to turn towards. We need to be able to turn towards whatever the memory is that's being held in there, whatever the sensation, whatever the emotion is. And we want to turn towards it in small bits, in enough timing, in a well-paced manner, so that beach ball eventually comes to the surface without having to make the big splash. So we just allow it to come up. We can choose to push it back down. We have a much more flexible relationship to whatever that's holding. And that we do that therapeutically, and you'll get lots of guidance during the practices of the book. You'll get lots of guidance about how do we use pendulation or titration, and I'll explain these two terms. Pendulation is basically turning towards the distress in small, tolerable, bite-sized chunks, right? Like we're going to turn towards the amount that I can handle right now, and it takes some of the pressure off, right? And it allows us to kind of work with the piece without going into total overwhelm. And then we pendulate between turning toward the distress and turning toward whatever might be a resource, right? Whether that resource is the therapeutic relationship, or maybe that resource is the breath. Maybe that resource is turning towards some kind of cue of safety that's in your room, right? Like the flowers that are there, or the plant, or, looking at something out your window, so that we oscillate our attention between the distress and whatever brings us some sense of ease. And this practice of pendulation is found in somatic psychology. It's found in EMDR therapy, right? We go in sets towards whatever the distress is, and we take a break and we check in. And so it's learning how to do that within the psyche, which is weaving our attention between our resource state and our distress, and our resource and our distress. And this is helping to counteract the negativity bias. So if you're not familiar with the negativity bias, it's basically a phrase that means we are wired for survival. We're wired to scan our environment for threats. And we actually have to consciously counteract that. We have to consciously counterbalance that by by looking for the good, as Rick Hansen says, right? We have to turn towards what is nourishing for our nervous system, whether that's through a relationship that feels really safe and connected, whether that is through our pet that we can really feel connected to. And so we turn towards the good and we actively seek it out so that we can have enough nourishment and resource that as we turn towards the distress doesn't fill the entire field of our awareness. We can go, oh, okay, I can hold that there's a both and.